The authority of the white elite was being challenged at all levels of West Indian society. In Trinidad in February 1960, at a test match against England, a riot erupted. An outraged crowd believed that a controversial run-out showed the umpires were favouring the old colonial masters. A month after the riot, West Indian writer C.L.R. James published an open appeal for Frank Worrell to be instated as captain.
Frank Worrell is at the peak of his reputation, not only as a cricketer, but as a master of the game. Respect for him has never been higher in all his long and brilliant career.
The authorities finally relented, and Worrell was appointed captain for the West Indies tour to Australia in November 1960.
That was really a great turning point. You know, now we can be all selected on merit, and yes, we accept that there are going to be batsmen or bowlers from each ethnic origin coming in, and that would help us to be stronger as a team and a unit.
Leading his team off the plane in Australia, Worrell was fulfilling a dream for black West Indians begun by Leary Constantine. For the first time, their cricket team would be chosen on ability alone. Worrell assembled a young side featuring batsman Conrad Hunt and Rohan Kanhai, and fast bowler Wes Hall. He wanted it to represent the Federation's new spirit of unity, and even included former captain Jerry Alexander. Also on that tour was a brilliant young all-rounder from Barbados. Gary Sobers had already hit the headlines 2 years earlier when he broke Len Hutton's record test match score. His 365 not out against Pakistan was the first test century this 21-year-old had scored.
And when I got to 364, I just pushed the ball in the covers, and before you look up, Clyde Walcott was down on me. I took off and ran down the other end, and the record was broken. The crowd was so overjoyed, and for about half an hour they were out there lifting me up and cheering.
With Sobers now established in the team, the West Indies travelled to Brisbane for the first test against Australia. It was Worrell's first match as captain, and the result would become part of cricket folklore.
The team captains Richie Benaud of Australia and Frank Worrell of the West Indies tossed before the start of the first test match.
Worrell won the toss and chose to bat first, but Australia struck early and the West Indies slumped to 65 for 3.
Kanhai caught grout, bowled Davidson for 15.
When Worrell walked out to join Sobers in the middle, he knew the course of the match now hung in the balance. The pressure was on the captain.
Play resumes with Benaud bowling his first over, and Sobers welcomes him with typical aggression. This sizzling straight drive takes the score past the 100.
Worrell, playing a captain's knock, is restraining his natural aggression.
With their backs to the wall, Sobers scored 132, and Worrell played a captain's innings with 65. Together they had pulled the West Indies back into contention.
It's a full toss, and MacDonald bangs it through for another 4 runs.
But the Australians replied strongly, and as the two sides both looked for the win, little separated the teams after almost 5 days of stylish and attacking cricket. The game was poised for a dramatic finish, with Australia needing 5 runs off the last 7 balls of the match, with Richie Benaud facing Wes Hall.
Wes was ripping in. It took about 8 minutes to bowl the last over. They were 8-ball overs in those days. And Frank Worrell had given Wes strict instructions not to bowl a bouncer to me because I was a reasonable hooker. But not this day, because he did bowl a bouncer and I got a top edge and thought it for a moment it was going to fly over Alexander's head, but it didn't.
Benaud's next and he's out, caught by Alexander. The 8th Australian wicket has fallen and either side can still win the match.
With the next 3 balls, Australia scrambled 2 more runs as they chased victory. Wes Hall missed a run-out, and then a catch.
The 5th ball. Grout swings, the ball goes high in the air. Hall races across and he drops the ball. The 6th ball. Metcalfe connects and the ball flies deep in the outfield. They complete a second run. The scores are level. The third run will win the match.
Mecco full slogged Wes to deep mid-wicket. Conrad Hunt chased it. The groundsman there had apologised to me earlier. He said, oh, there's something wrong with the mower. I haven't been able to cut the clover. And this thing stopped in the clover a couple of yards from the boundary. Conrad Hunt picked it up and they're going for the winning run, and the throw had to be within an inch of the stumps. Otherwise, Wally Grout would have been okay.
Grout makes a great effort, but the bails go off and he's run out.
With the scores now tied and pressure mounting, Worrell had some advice for Wes Hall.
When Frank Worrell went to him and says, the only thing I have to tell you is if you bowl a no ball, you know what would happen. You will not be able to go back to the West Indies.
All bowling the seventh ball to Klein.
And that is when Wes Hall said, and he planted his foot about 4 feet behind the crease to make sure that there wasn't a malignant umpire out there. And when he bowled it to Joe Solomon at square leg, we thought it was all over because square leg is the hardest place in the world to hit wickets from because all you can see is one stem.
And here's the single that wins the match.
And for Joe Solomon to hit that one stump was absolutely remarkable, knowing that the batsman was going to run under all circumstances.
This was the first tied test in the history of the game, and it set the tone for an enthralling series. Despite eventually losing the series 2-1, Frank Worrell was hailed by the Australian press as an inspirational leader and applauded for the exciting brand of cricket his team played. The campaign to appoint Worrell had been vindicated.
And we drove through the streets of Melbourne, thousands of people. People don't want us to leave. West Indies cricket start to rise from 1960.
Back home, they were hailed as national heroes. There was now optimism in Caribbean society that with the cricket team and the Federation, the West Indies could look to the future as a single independent nation.
This was the scene at Palisadoes Airport as a crowd of over 2,000 people awaited the return from Australia of 4 of the Jamaican members of the West Indies Test side. The people of Kingston, and indeed of all Jamaica, wanted to applaud these sporting representatives of the Federation.
But after only 3 years, cracks began to appear in the unity of the Federation. Jamaica and Trinidad wanted a greater share of the political power, which they argued reflected their greater economic contribution. These differences threatened to undermine the union. In 1962, the Federation officially collapsed. And later that year, Jamaica and Trinidad were granted full independence of their own. Leading the West Indies to England in 1963, Worrell knew that his team were now the only ambassadors for West Indian people. Cricket, more than ever, would have to represent the West Indies. Worrell kept the core of the team that had taught Australia, but he also added Charlie Griffith, who, with Wes Hall, would form a fearsome opening bowling attack. Together, they began the West Indies' reputation for aggressive pace bowling.
When Cowdrey was at 19, another blow for England, and for poor Cowdrey himself, struck on the forearm.
The West Indies outclassed England, winning the series 3-1.
The end of Stewart, caught by Solomon off ball.
And in the final test at the Oval, West Indian fans raced onto the pitch to greet their heroes.
The Oval can never have known a scene like this. Victory in the series by 3 matches to 1 confirmed the West Indies as the most powerful side in the world.
After the tour, Frank